Welcome back. In the last few videos, we've covered one of the most fundamental operations in neural networks, and that is matrix multiplication. But now it's time to move on, and let's cover tensor aggregation. And what I mean by that is finding the min, max, mean, sum, etc. tensor aggregation of certain tensor values. So for whatever reason, you may want to find the minimum value of a tensor, the maximum value, the mean, the sum, what's going on there. So let's have a look at some few PyTorch methods that are inbuilt to do all of these. And again, if you're finding one of these values, it's called tensor aggregation because you're going from what's typically a large amount of numbers to a small amount of numbers. So the min of this tensor would be 27. So you're turning it from 9 elements to 1 element, hence aggregation. So let's create a tensor. Create a tensor, x equals torch dot, let's use a range. We'll create maybe a 0 to 100 with a step of 10. Sounds good to me. And we can find the min by going, can we do torch dot min? Maybe we can. Or we could also go x dot min. And then we can do the same, find the max, torch.max, and x.max. Now, how do you think we might get the average? So let's try it out. Or find the mean. Find the mean. Torch.mean x. Oops, we don't have an x. Is this going to work? What's happened? Mean. Input data type should be either floating point or complex D types. Got long instead. Haha! Finally! I knew that error would show its face eventually. Remember how I said right up here that we've covered a fair bit already? But right up here, some of the most common errors that you're going to run into is tensors not the right data type, not the right shape. We've seen that with matrix multiplication, not the right device. We haven't seen that yet. But not the right data type. This is one of those times. So it turns out that the tensor that we created, x, is of the data type, x.dtype, int64, which is long. So if we go to, let's look up torch tensor. This is where they're getting long from. We've seen long before. Is int64, where's that? Or long, yeah. So long tensor, that's what it's saying. And it turns out that the torch mean function can't work on tensors with data type long. So what can we do here? Well, we can change the data type of x. So let's go torch mean x type and change it to float 32. Or before we do that, if we go to torch.mean, is this going to tell us that it needs a d type? Oh, d type? Optional, the desired data type. Does it have float 32? It doesn't tell us. So this is another one of those little hidden things that you're going to come across, and you only really come across this by writing code, is that sometimes the documentation doesn't really tell you explicitly what D type the input should be, the input tensor. However, we find out that with this error message that it should either be a floating point or a complex D type, not a long. So we can convert it to torch float 32. So all we've done is gone x type as type float 32. Let's see what happens here. 45, beautiful. And then the same thing if we went, can we do x.mean? Is that going to work as well? Same thing. So if we go x.type torch.float 32, get the mean of that. There we go. So that is, I knew it would come up eventually. A beautiful example of finding the right data type. Let me just put a note here. Note, the torch.mean function requires a tensor of float 32. So far we've seen two of the major errors in PyTorch is data type and shape issues. What's another one that we said? Sum. So find the sum. Find the sum, we want x.sum, or maybe we just do torch.sum first. Keep it in line with what's going on above, and x.sum. Which one of these should you use, like torch.something x or x.sum? Personally, I prefer torch.max, but you'll also probably see me at points write this. It really depends on what's going on. I would say pick whichever style you prefer, and because behind the scenes they're calling the same methodology, pick whichever style you prefer and stick with that throughout your code. For now, let's leave it at that. Tensor aggregation. There's some finding min, max, mean, sum. In the next video, we're going to look at finding the positional min and max, which is also known as argmax and argmin, or vice versa. So actually, that's a little bit of a challenge for the next video, is see how you can find out what the positional min and max is of this. And what I mean by that is which index does the max value occur at, and which index of this tensor does the min occur at. You'll probably want to look into the methods argmin, torch.argmin for that one, and torch.argmax for that. But we'll cover that in the next video. I'll see you there.